I'm Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 2, recorded on August 4th, 2016. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths Finder themes, one theme at a time, and today's theme is Maximizer. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window. If you just look it down there, right below it, actually, on the live page, you can log in with a guest account. Just clicking the login button. It's the bottom left-hand corner, and you will be able to just choose the guest account, put your name in there, and hit login. We've got 20 of you in there now, and we'd love to have you with your questions. You can also pop out that chat window, by the way. Here's a pro tip if you're going to join us live. There's some little red boxes in the upper right-hand, there will be over, I think over here, upper right-hand corner of the chat room. And if you click on that red box, it'll pop the chat out, and you can put it anywhere in your screen. So pro tip, if you want to join us, get that anywhere. It's available for you. Love to have your questions during the live show. If you're listening to the recorded version or you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, we do that as well. Send us an email. coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center. Just gallupstrengthcenter.com for all your coaching resources and StrengthsFinder training needs. You can also catch the video now streaming and downloadable audio. Best way really to listen to this is in a podcast form on your phone as you're traveling. Lots of different ways to do that. Find your local geek and ask him, how do I do this? How do I podcast? And they'll help you get that set up. To get it done, you would search for Call to Coach or Theme Thursday based on your program. And I actually have really big links for you over on the subscribe tab on the coach's blog. So get your phone, pause this for a second, go get your phone, and then go to your browser and type in coaching.gallup.com. And then you go to a section that says subscribe. Go to the section. There's two big buttons there, and you can subscribe to these on either Android or iPhone. I've done all the work for you. It's super easy, so get that done today. Again, coaching.gallup.com. Micah Libran is our host today. She's my favorite learning development consultant here at Gallup. I'm a little sad, Micah, because you're not here. 2 weeks ago, you were here, and it was so much fun to webcast with you, but welcome back to another Theme Thursday.
Thanks, Jim. Great to be here.
All right, we have Maximizer today, and Maximizer is number 3 for me, and I use it a ton, so we're going to have a great opportunity to chat about it. But as we think about it, hopefully everyone's downloaded the companion guide that's available for you. A great way to do that on a weekly basis. By the way, we make those available for you, too, as well on the coach's blog. Look for the GWSW tab. They're actually all listed there. Just click on it. We ask you 5 quick questions, hit submit, boom, you have it within about 20 seconds. So if you want to do that for any of those, they're available out there as well. Micah, let's dig in on Maximizer. What is it as we define it?
Yeah, Maximizer really is that idea of taking something that's good and making it excellent, which is why I love working with you on this project and every project. It's about that sort of driving impatience with mediocrity that leads you to really focusing on how do you make everything excellent. If you look at our companion guide, we've got the short definition there. People exceptionally talented in the Maximizer theme focus on strengths as a way to stimulate personal and group excellence. They seek to transform something strong into something superb. What I think is perhaps the most beautiful thing about Maximizer is they believe that they can transform something strong into something superb, which means that they see potential that a lot of people might otherwise miss. You know, it's not about just completing the task as it was outlined. It's how do I go 5 steps further, or how do I deliver something even better than people could have imagined, because I've got that lens that tells me that something great has potential to be world class, to really be mind-blowing. I call it the mic drop theme. I'm not just going to do this, I'm going to do it in the very best way possible, and then I might reflect upon how it could have been even better.
Yeah, you see you're in constant QA mode, just always going like, that was okay. Well, everybody else is celebrating. You're off kind of thinking, how could we do that bigger and better the next time? I think a great example of that for me, just go back to our early webcasts. So if you go to the YouTube channel and just go all the way back, it's been weird. We've been doing this for 3 years now. Watch some of the early webcasts and then watch them now. There's a perfect example, and for me, Maximizer is a little bit of change over long periods of time. That's kind of how it works out for me. I never want to change too much too quickly, but I do like to move things a little bit at a time, kind of turn up the heat on the stove. so to speak, just a little bit at a time until you notice the water's boiling. So for me, that's a good example of it. When we think about the themes power and edge, what does that look like?
So the themes power and edge is really talking about what's beautiful and possible and awesome about it. Maximizers have and bring to others a focus on quality. They naturally prefer working with and for the best. They create strengths within groups by enabling each person to do what he or she naturally does best. Their drive toward excellence can lead to a new standard of success. Simply put, they bring a higher performance to where they are. It's that standard of excellence that says we can expect something better. My mom's got Maximizer in her top 5, and I think one of the things growing up that the worst thing you could ever do was what she called a halfway job. And it didn't matter if you were, creating some fantastic piece of artwork or sweeping the floor. If you had finished and you had kind of only done what was asked, it was, that's kind of a halfway job because she sees so much more potential in everything. And it is that ability to see that you could swing for the fences. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure. As we look at raw versus mature, one of the words you're going to use here in a second is the word sort. And I love, when I think of Maximizer, we always think of I think a lot of us think of it in the terms of quality or making things better. But I also want to focus, Micah, bring out this idea of how we sort. In other words, how do we, just talk about that, raw versus mature.
Yeah, so raw versus mature, again, just a quick reminder, what we're looking at is the developmental journey of every theme. Raw might mean just that you've never named it as a strength, you never realized it had power. It also might mean that it's just got a ways to go before it's going to be helpful. It also might mean it's just sort of nagging there and you don't realize how it could be used. And then mature is it's used in a great way. It really is played out in a way that benefits you or benefits others or leads to performance. Raw maximizer is or can be dismissive, meaning I'm going to ignore things that aren't already good because I'm focusing on what's good so I can make it great. Don't bother me with those broken projects. Don't take up my time with things that aren't going to be excellent. Mature side of that, I think, is selective. So how can you be proactively sorting to potential so that everything you're surrounded by could, with a few tweaks, be even better? I think about Maximizer is one of those themes that is exclusive or perhaps a little bit more closed and can sort. So I think Maximizer is that way. I think probably competition is that way. I think, even if you think about it in many ways, strategic is that way, is sort of let me close to the best patterns and the best opportunities. What Maximizer is closed to is too much extra that is just good. How do I focus on what could be truly great? So it's not about everybody coming to the party or every idea having an equal seat at the table. It's about how do I make sure that before we get to the table, I'm going to populate it with all the ideas that already have potential. So using that sorting in a mature way, I think is being proactively selective by, maybe that is positioning yourself at the very end of a process to say, guys, I'm going to be the final look before we hand in our assignment because I'm going to give it that extra bit of polish. That is probably a more proactive way to say be selective to what's already good versus at every step of that project I'm going to come in and tell you how it could be better, which might not make the most of everybody else who's trying to collaborate with you.
Yeah, you're going to talk about this here in a second, but they're throwing in the chat room this word of perfectionism, and I think when we think about dismissive and perfectionism in its raw state, I often think of we talk about this a lot, right? The me versus we. And I think perfectionism is a characteristic of me. So I want it perfect for me, or I want to see perfection for me because that's what I need. In the we, as you talk about the sorting, all of a sudden that turns on how can I make other people in the we context, how can I make them better by pushing their performance to better quality? Or to sorting groups to do better things based on their themes. And it turns that perfectionism into the we decision of, and this is why I like that word sorting. We go from perfectionism to sort. because I think that word is so easy to use and really defines what we do. For managers, this is really, really, really important, I think, in being able to understand how to get the best out of your people, how to sort them appropriately based on the jobs that they can do best, and then how to get the most out of the experiences that they have. And so this maximizer theme, if you're a manager and you have this, you better be using this superpower for good and not beating people down with it with perfection, but empowering them with this sorting capability to get the best, right, to get the most out of them. So just want to encourage folks. I love that you guys have, I think Kurt taught me that word, and Micah, you've brought it in, this sorting concept. I have really camped on it, especially as a manager, and how to get the best out of people. So what else when we think of raw versus mature?
I think raw maximizer is everything needs to be the best, whereas mature maximizer is what's good can be better. And it probably comes down to that sorting piece. But I think more personally, if you think about having super, super, super high standards for everything, it gets exhausting, and you most likely are going to spend the majority of your time disappointed. But if you can think about what's most important to me, what's most important to our team, what pieces of this really do need to be the best, and how can I focus my energy there? So that might be what you're talking about, Jim, with putting the right person in the right place and then expecting world class from them in that right place. But it might be something as simple as I'm planning a family vacation and I am honest with myself at what are the most important aspects of it. Do I really care what kind of food we eat, or am I going to, go all out for the hotel that we're staying in? Thinking about, a decision matrix for a maximizer might help those maximizers say, how do I weight every aspect of this key decision that I'm making, and how do I spend more time in those areas that are more important to me of bringing that standard of excellence where maybe it wouldn't be there otherwise. So it's thinking about what's already good, and that's a clue for maximizers. What they're drawn to is not just what's most important to them, but they're also drawn to what has potential. That might be a key difference between maximizer and developer. Developer believes that everybody can improve incrementally and celebrates those incremental improvements. Maximizer really looks for promise, potential, and in many cases purpose, looking for what is already great and how can I help them see a next level that maybe they weren't even aware of. So it's I think that same principle of maximizer can be applied to your own decisions. So really thinking about what's really great, that might be where you want to put in most of your energy.
Yeah, and I think in a mature state, it also says when is it good enough, and it knows when to cut bait at that point and say, because sometimes that perfectionistic idea or whatever, as we think of those, in this case, it always can be better. Sometimes the cost of it being better is too high. And so we have to, as maximizers, we also have to look and say, what is this either costing me or what is this costing the group that is with me? And so I think a maximizer can also maximize those pieces to say, what is the ROI on the investment to go the rest of the way? I know there's a statement that said in chat, sometimes good is the enemy of great. Sometimes great ruins the group, or just destroys people in its process. A maximizer, I think, is able to sort that and know, hey, what's the cost? What's this going to cost the group? I know, am I having some video problems, Micah, from audio? Are you hearing audio?
Not from me, no.
Am I okay on your side? Good. I'm seeing some of it in my own screen here. So, anyways, I think that there's a maximizer statement, right? I'm watching the screen and it's not what I want it to be.
This could be better.
And I'm saying, this could be better. So I think we want to caution that maximizer also knows what's the best for maybe in the group, and that the cost of getting to the most excellent or the absolute best solution may be too high. What else do we have when we get there?
That's interesting. I have maximizer pretty high, and I think it's one of those that I can remember from when I was a very young child. And I remember in about 7th grade, I got a B in gym. And I thought that was going to ruin my perfect 4.0 that I wanted for junior high. Nobody even measures your GPA really that much for junior high. It was a small town. It was the same building that I was going into in high school. It wasn't like I was applying to somewhere else. But this B in gym I just thought was the most devastating thing ever. And I was just positive that it was going to tarnish my record. And it was the first time I'd ever heard the phrase choose your battles. And I remember my dad told me, Micah, because I was ready to go to bat and get this expunged and turned into an A. And I remember my dad said, choose your battles, and I had no idea what it meant. But it is that idea of sort to where you're going to get the biggest return on your investment, and then maximize in those areas. And that comes back to me as a moment where I realized raw maximizer might not sort, and mature maximizer does.
And go after everything, right?
Yeah.
For 100% when it's not really effective. So pretty cool. What else do we have?
Another example of me versus we, raw maximizer is never satisfied, but mature maximizer notices and expresses improvement. So being able to say, like you just did, Jim, look at season 1 of our podcasts and look at how much better they've gotten and celebrate the people on our team who got them there. Part of that is being really intentional, not only about looking for what is a higher standard, but what did we climb in order to get to that higher standard, and think about that recognition of where we've been as something that's going to help other people climb the ladder again. One other final statement here, raw maximizer is kind of snobbish, and mature maximizer is supportive. Now, the difference in those, I think about sometimes we say snobbish almost with good humor. I think about there are certain things that you might be a snob about. It might be coffee. I'm certainly a coffee snob. I'm even a coffee machine snob because I want only the very best. But mature is thinking about being supportive. How can I lend my quest for other people? So that might mean helping people who are searching for a coffee maker and telling them why I'm a snob about mine. It might also mean looking for opportunities for you to bring the group up to a better place, rather than sort of closing off and saying, I only eat Gouda. How can you say, all right, here's what I've done, here's what I've learned, here was my process, and that's why my standards are the way they are.
We have some complementary themes that when we think about with Maximizer, I think this is going to be a good discussion. Let's dig into that.
Yeah, so think about what might you look for in a good partner. And of course, any partner can be a great partner. It's just about transparency, self-awareness, expression, and regulation. But I think specifically the first one that came up for me was a strategic thinking theme, the theme of analytical, being a great partner for Maximizer because of this idea of return on investment. Maximizer can sense where there's going to be great return on investment and Maximizer almost gets magnetically drawn to where are areas of greatest growth. I think analytical brings along some dispassionate credibility to that quest. So thinking about what do the numbers or the data suggest it would be a great return on our investment, and where can we back off a little bit? Where is good perhaps going to be good enough? And think about that partnership there of the sensing but also the thinking about return on investment. The second one that I have, oh yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead.
The other one I pulled up here was communication, which is another influencing theme, which I usually try to sort of think about these in other domains, but I thought telling the story for quality and the reason that we need quality is something that can be really important for Maximizer in order to almost buy the time that you need to maximize something. So a partner with high communication, I think, can help drop that commitment to excellence into a storyline and say, here's why we're going to go back in the field and sort of tweak our beta design a little bit, or here's why we're going to hold off on our grand reopening because we've got better paint on the walls. Somebody who can sort of be the marketing manager of your maximization would be a fantastic partner to look out for.
Yeah, well, pure Maximizer with people could be a little rough, and that communication piece can bring take the edge off of it, and so we know I've run into pure maximizers, and mostly in software when we think about QA roles, and we value this could be better, this doesn't work right, this kind of thing, that we value that, but sometimes that statement can come at again the costs get too high. And it's not even practical to do all the things to make it 100%. And so a partner who can communicate that message out in its raw form, it's blunt, it's arrogant, it's aggressive, And someone with communication can kind of tone that down and bring, like you said, I like the way you're, bring some time, give some time to it for people to absorb it and really make a difference. I think we've run into those on both sides. And also, when we think about the analytical and the communication, can spend some time like, okay, let's think about this a little bit and get the maximum value out of it with the time that we have available. So I think that's awesome. We have some likely and unlikely pairs from our database. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So statistically, the theme that shows up the most often in people's top 5 with Maximizer is the theme strategic. So that strategic thinking theme, about 30% chance if you've got Maximizer, you'll also have strategic. The difference between these two is strategic really is about the plan and how do I move through the plan, whereas Maximizer is about the polish and how do I make the most of things. Of course, you could think about how do they go together because they're both asking that question, how? They're both looking for alternatives. The way that Maximizer changes strategic is I'm not looking for any alternative, I'm looking for the one that targets to the best, highest standard. So I'm really sorting to the best alternative or the one that gets me to that better place. I imagine somebody with both Maximizer and strategic could think about communicating the plan. So perhaps it looks like a great partner with communication, being able to say, not just this can be better, but here's how we get to how this can be better. Strategic's about, it's very fast, and it's not as easy as being able to say, here's the steps. Strategic is let's start with the end in mind, and then I can quickly sense the right way to go by picking up on patterns and sort of helping them fall into a place. So when I think about these two together, I think about somebody who's just constantly making maps for how things can improve. Thinking maybe somebody who's really focused on not just the end goal, but how can I go further than anybody expects me to go? How can we take something and make it even better? Thinking about if you're working with a team, the gift that Strategic and Maximizer would give to that team is the ability to take that standard of excellence down to a map to say, we're going to move through this. Here's our move now, here's our next move, and here's how it makes us better in the end.
Mike, a question in the chat room. Luke asked, would individualization intensify Maximizer? Do you think, could it? In other words, especially in a role where we're working with people, what do you think about that?
I think what you just said, Jim, at the very beginning about the role of a manager with Maximizer. Imagine what a manager with Maximizer and individualization would bring to the table. I imagine it when I sit with that person, if they were my boss, they'd be able to say, here's what I know about you that I think could be even better. And wow, and be able to bring it down to that very unique, spot-on characteristics that are specific to me. So I think what individualization would do to Maximizer is make it a little bit more specific to the individual, to the people. So think about how do I think about a development plan for an individual person. It might also be how do I place the right people into my plan to get our results even better. So it could work, I think, both ways. It could be targeted toward the development of somebody else, or it could be using the strengths of somebody else to get to the development of the plan.
Yeah. Speaking of Maximizer, it's driving me crazy. We're a little out of sync on the video. So if you're watching us, and Roy, I'm sorry, Roy fixes all this in post-production, but it's the Maximizer in me is going a little nuts at the moment. What about an unlikely pair out of our database?
I didn't even look at the video till just now, Jim, and now it's driving me crazy. My adaptability, I was like, I'll just avoid it. I'll just put up a different screen, and I won't have to watch.
It's a good call. Well, we'll need this next theme here, and maybe Roy's got this, but what's unlikely?
Hopefully Roy has restorative. It is statistically the least likely to show up with Maximizer, and it is a very, very, very slim chance that it does. It's almost less than 1% of our random sample of our database have both of these in their top 5. And I think it makes sense. Restorative is I can fix it, and Maximizer is why focus on it if it's broken. Restorative wants to bring things back to their original state. Maximizer's already moved way beyond that original state to how do I get something enhanced. We often would tell the story in strengths courses about illustrating the difference. If somebody with restorative is going to restore an old car, they very likely, and this is sort of a caricature of it, so don't read too much into it, but they very likely would bring it back to its original condition, thinking thinking about what were the paint colors in the year that it came out, what was the most popular upholstery, maybe even thinking about, putting in the way that model year car had audio in it, if it means putting in an 8-track or a cassette player or just an AM radio. Whereas somebody with Maximizer, if you're going to restore an old car, might think about, I want to put Bluetooth speakers in this, and I want, purple flames on the side, and I want to add a lift kit and Wi-Fi, and thinking about how do I enhance it and take it beyond what it was originally to something even better. Now, that's not to say you couldn't have both of them. I'd love to hear from you if you do have both of them. I imagine that being somebody who says, I'm not intimidated by what's broken or what could break, I can make it better. So that idea of not just putting a Band-Aid on something, but being drawn to something that is bleeding and making it better than it was before.
We're a little early on this, but the theme dynamic says you are attracted to and driven by excellence, and you can't ignore or minimize any problems that erode the quality you love. So there's a little just a little, that's a little bonus in here in Theme Thursday. We did not have that in the list.
Themes. I really like that.
That didn't make the top 5. So some final thoughts and reflections on it, Micah?
Yeah, I think when you're coaching somebody with Maximizer, it can be your mission to help them direct that commitment to quality to helping other people succeed. It can also mean, how do I help them funnel that drive for excellence to the places where they will get the best return on their investment, which might mean helping people let go of some of the pieces that don't need maximized, to really help them focus on what are you committed to being the best at, and then why. How do you communicate the value of that maximizer? How do you communicate the opportunities to maximize so that you really can sort of let the horses run and go full speed on those places that are best for you? I think sometimes that means helping people set that up and introduce the maximizer before it introduces them, which I think I end up saying about several themes, but I think it's really important to say, here is the promise that I see. Therefore, we need to do X, Y, Z around that, versus just jumping in and saying it's not good enough. So think about, how do you communicate the value of the potential that you think is there? Even if I don't think Maximizer, it's not futuristic, it's not ideation. You might not have clarity around what greatness looks like, because greatness is an ever evolving, ever open target. But think about, what is it that you're imagining, and how could this be a little bit better, so that you can let people into that potential that you're imagining. I think that gives them that attracts them to you and makes them want to come back and ask you to maximize things, which I think is sort of the idea of how do we be who we really are and be needed for that. Also think about, how do you communicate that you care? I hope we're not painting too gruff of a picture with Maximizer, because it is an influencing theme, so it is targeted at other people. I think the best way to get a group project together is first to think about that leadership standpoint of, how do I create some compassion so that I can take something that I know could be a whole lot better and thank people for letting me help them make it better. So think about exploring the other themes that that are in play with your Maximizer, and ask which one is going to help you communicate compassion and make those relationship connections so that you can then maximize what's going on. Also think about, how do you communicate what great really looks like? Set yourself some boundaries. That might be time, that might be deadlines, that might be resources, and give yourself the challenge to make the most of those resources that you have, or of those boundaries that you have. Your Maximizer will love the challenge, and you'll be able to not get lost in that constant evolving state of making everything better over and over again, and move on perhaps to other ideas, other projects, other pieces that you could make even better.
All right, very cool. Any other thoughts, reflections before we dive into our theme dynamics?
Yeah, I think important to know that people with high Maximizer might not really be drawn to things that are broken or that could get broken. So spending a lot of time talking about weakness is not going to be attractive, very likely, to a Maximizer, because they see so much more to talk about in what's strong. And so if you leave that on the table and you don't ask them, what's good that could be better, they might feel like there's just so much uncharted territory and potential. So give them a good platform to talk about the potential that they're sensing, progressing. I always like to ask maximizers, what sort of successful plans do you see that could be even better, and how could you contribute to that? As a maximizer, think about investing in that theme by studying success. Get comfortable, get familiar with key players in your field, and have conversations with them, whether that's face to face or by reading books that they've written about how they got there. If you build your repertoire of success, I think it gives you more words that you can use to communicate greatness. It also gives you more examples of what does this look like in the context of relationships, of the rest of your world, of key industry pieces. So I think get really familiar and spend time studying success. You will be at your best, and when you speak the language of success when you've got maximizers. So invest a little bit in that language. I think spend time with people who can talk about what they do really well, and build your repertoire and your vocabulary to talk about what others do exceptionally well. That will help you put words to what great partnerships might be, so that you can say, here's what I offer, here's the absolute best of what I offer, and here's what I don't, but here's what excellence looks like in other people in some of those areas that I don't offer. So I think about that. That might be an incredibly powerful way for Maximizer to continue to focus on strengths, is how do you explain the strengths of others? Coming back to that question about individualization and Maximizer, that might even be a great partner for a Maximizer to be able to say, here are some things that I notice in the people you work with most closely, or here are some things I notice in the people who you manage. That sort of bit to be able to say, these are the themes or the strengths or the tendencies that I don't have but that I really appreciate. And I think that builds that collaboration and helps us all focus on what we do best, which at the end of the day is really what Maximizer loves.
So for me, Maximizer 3, right, I've got these Activator, ideation, arranger themes that sit around it. My partners have learned to give me permission not to make things better at times. Jim, we're not looking. Like they'll say, or the other thing I find myself doing is even in success. So we're sitting around sharing successes we've had, and immediately I start thinking, well, that's cool, but what else could we do? Like, how could we make that better? And not in a way like it was bad. I think sometimes we think maximizers take bad and make it good. Sometimes we take good and make it better.
And that can be a really positive experience, right? So it's not that could be better with a frown on your face. It's, right. Oh my gosh, I know how this could be even better.
I know. Hey, have you thought about? I do this a lot, and I've even learned to tone it down some, to not be, because I used to, in its raw form, I just blurt it out, like, blah, barf all over them, these ideas. And now I've kind of learned, well, wait, and maybe saying it now is not appropriate, but coming back around at another time, or picking a strategic time to come back and say, hey, I had some ideas, and even the way you present it, right, using communication, to say, man, that was awesome. I got a few ideas. Are you interested, like, just ways we could tweak it a little bit to make it better. And so I've learned with that, be very strategic in the sense of how you go about that, and how you approach people with that maximizer theme. Because it can be very, very powerful. Turn it into recognition, too. Like, use it as a way to start with the recognition. Hey, what you did was awesome. I liked this. I liked this. I like this. I've seen we could try this, maybe one thing. We could try this and add some power to it. What do you think? All right.
You know what I like that you also did was you turned it into an invitation. So you're educating other people about what you bring to the table and offering it in this nice little gold tied up bow. That's beautiful. Would you like to hear it? They can say no. Now, I doubt they ever would to you, Jim, but they very well could say no, and you can move on and maximize something else.
Listen, those conversations are usually blunt force trauma. But it's gotten a little older. I've kind of tried to figure out how to make those work, and to not be. And again, it's so key, I think, to turn those into recognition moments, right? When the maximizer turns on, usually it means you've caught on to a good idea. Like, there's something really good in that, and you want to make it better. And so you get that opportunity. I think a lot of people focus on the broken, and this is not one of those things where we start going negative on this, right? Where we start going, oh, we take broken things and make them better. And it can be, right? But using the superpower for good can really be one of those of taking good things and recognizing for what it is, and then being able to take it maybe an inch farther, or a foot farther, or a mile farther, whatever that is. But doing it in a way with those other themes around you to help people just be better versions.
And if you're
installed.
receiving that from a maximizer, you should take it as recognition. Maximizer doesn't spend a whole lot of time looking at things that aren't great. So having a maximizer come to you and say, "Hey, I've got a couple ideas," understand that means you're already doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think sometimes it does mean you're on track. We
Yeah.
just could take it. We could take a step, take it a little bit step farther. All right. Speaking of themes around others, we have you vote in the Facebook group every week. You should be in our part of our Facebook group if you head out to facebook.com/group/called to coach. We have a group every week. We vote on these theme dynamics, these pairs. Why don't you talk a little bit about it, Micah, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, so we're thinking about what do themes look like when they play with others. So every theme is going to be filtered through another theme when it's in your top 5, and this helps us really start to imagine the intricacy of the number of possible themes that you could have together. What we're looking at is this concept of theme dynamics, and Jim's going to pull up here on the screen the ebook, which is the companion to Expanding Your Strengths. It's an app that's available when you purchase that ebook on Amazon, and what it does is it's a drop-down menu where you can take any 2 themes out of all 34 and blend them together and then hear what might they sound like if they were in one person. So what we did on our Facebook Call to Coach group page this week was we voted on the 5 themes you wanted to hear blended with Maximizer. So this question that we're answering here is, what would it look like if a Maximizer also had these themes? This is where it gets really fun. The first one that we have up is another influencing theme. It's that of Activator. And Activator is the let's get going theme. So perhaps it's that impatience to get to excellence. If you listen to what Kurt Liesfeld, who wrote these, said, he says, you push people to get started and to aspire to become the best they can be. Success is always about speed and excellence. Kurt always used to talk about the power of and I think this statement is exactly what he meant. Every time it's not speed or excellence. So the next one we're going to take a look at here is Maximizer and Futuristic, a strategic thinking theme. And I think about this as being perhaps futuristic. What it does to Maximizer is it brings the greatness a little bit more into focus. Or maybe it brings a place for greatness into focus. And that place is time in the future. It also may mean that Maximizer plays a little bit more strategically by looking into the future and then working backwards and being able to use that as an example of return on investment. Every movie I've ever seen where people could time travel, it seems like buying stock is what I'm always rooting for them to do, because you can go into the future and see what's going to be successful, and then you can go back and say, oh, I invested in that. This might be the perfect example of that, a futuristic and Maximizer. What Kurt says here is when you dream about your future, it usually includes you getting better at what you do well and doing more of what you do best. What he really touches on here is this, the commitment to strengths that Maximizer has. I think we've got a lot of Maximizer in our strengths community because the sense of strengths and focusing on strengths naturally makes sense to these people. It's, focus on who you are, don't try to be who you're not, and get really, really, really good at that. So when you add futuristic to that, it's imagining a place where everybody knows that that's the way that we work.
Yeah, it's a magical combo. These two together in a group setting on planning and looking forward and forecasting for the future, or just planning out your life can just be very, very powerful. Let's look at Maximizer and Connectedness.
One of my favorite themes. So connectedness is that holistic view of the world, the idea that nothing happens by accident, but that we're all connected and all ideas and actions are connected. It's a relationship building theme. So when you blend it with Maximizer, it sounds like this. Conscious of the bigger picture and the broader community, you strive to contribute your best for the greater good. Almost similar to what we're talking about with futuristic, where Maximizer may select those areas of biggest return on investment by looking to the future. When you put these two together, perhaps Maximizer selects the areas of return on investment based on where it's going to do more global good. And I use global in sort of a liberal sense, but good for something bigger than yourself. How do you maximize on things that are going to be connected to others?
Luke says in the chat room, just going back a little bit, he said, futuristic maximizer is my most powerful weapon, the best possible future. I love those kinds of statements when people recognize that and discover that superpower and say, man, I could really turn this into good for people. So, Luke, thanks for that
I love
comment.
that statement, the best possible. I mean, that's probably the maximizer to a T. Add it to anything else, the best possible. That relentless pursuit of what could be better. It's gorgeous about maximizer.
Yeah, and that's really for everyone. That's Luke's combo. You have combos as well that I would encourage you to dig in at 2 or 3 at a time and put those together in a statement that says, what is the best of that? What does the best look like for you? You don't have to have maximizer to have that. What does the best look like for me in that? And so take 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, and put those into statements like this. Go through that exercise of working through it and making a mission statement or a purpose statement or a value statement, whatever you want to call it. Great exercise. We spent a little bit of time talking about this already, but maximizer and communication.
Sweet. 2 influencing themes together here. Communication's about seeing the world through stories. What communication hungers for is to be understood, but also to understand. So when you put it together with Maximizer, it's the best possible story that helps you be understood in the best possible way. You could also hear it like this. Your most productive conversations usually focus on the best potential of a person or on the best practice of a team. I think we throw around that term best practice kind of loosely. Sometimes what we mean without maximizer is what has anybody else ever tried? Sometimes what we mean is what's the most common practice. Maximizers, I think the term best practice probably means something different to them. What is the best? What gets us the best return on our investment? Where is the place we should spend our time if we could only spend it in one place? I think the word essential comes to mind when I think about maximizer. What is the most important thing that you can do? How do I gear my energy toward the essential and the really, I think the pervasive, the sticky, the area that's going to get me to not just good but incredible.
Let's do one more because I like this. I like the combo of this maximizer and deliberative.
I love this. So if you watch season 1 of Theme Thursday, you'll hear our guest talk about her combination of maximizer and deliberative, which is a slower, more methodical, almost cautious approach to educating people around where we should maximize. And what she says is, you know what, doing the best thing saves you time. And I thought that was just such a beautiful statement of somebody with high deliberative, realizing if we jump in and if you buy the top of the line stroller, you're not going to buy 6 of the cheapest strollers. There's a little glimpse into where my world is right now with an almost 1-year-old. But I think that deliberative is going to help you sort through your options in order not only to look for the safest, most risk-averse option, but the best option. So the most cautious option that gets you to the best return on your investment. It sounds like this. You proceed cautiously and thoroughly when quality absolutely cannot be compromised. Haste can make waste.
Next week, we're going to bring positivity in, and 6 for me, and so excited to talk about positivity. And we have a lot of that here at Gallup. That's one of the things that shows up. It pops up in a lot of folks' profile. But when we look at maximizer and positivity, let's look at those two.
I am so excited about positivity. I can't even tell you how excited I am, which is a positivity statement, I suppose, because it is about drama. It's about helping other people feel what you feel, and that feeling is usually positive. But it's a relationship-building theme, and it's really about connecting to what's good and celebrating it. When you blend it together with Maximizer, it sounds like this. You choose to focus on good rather than evil, and on strength rather than weakness. And when you do, it creates energy and hope.
See, I think that's the statement of strengths right there. If you're going to memorize one line, or is this maybe 2? I guess it is one line, one sentence. I think this kind of wraps it up. It's good rather than evil, on strengths rather than weaknesses, and when you do, it creates energy and hope. That's powerful.
We talk about hope as being the belief that tomorrow's going to be better today, and that you can make it that way. And I can think of, for somebody with maximizer and positivity, yeah, it comes through those themes. But I would challenge you to look at your combination of themes and ask, where does hope come from for me? What do I have within me that is going to make tomorrow better than today? I can't wait to talk about positivity because it is the theme that dominates the rest of mine. It's my theme sultan, who sort of overlooks the rest of them. But really, for you, if you're listening to this right now, it doesn't matter if it's August 4th, 2016, or some date somewhere in the future. Challenge yourself to say, what do I have that creates hope, and how do I go out and do it?
Yeah, it's going to be great. Micah, one final thought as we head out here on Maximizer.
So here's a maximizer statement for me. I found this great quote that I really, really loved, but I spent a lot of extra time trying to figure out who to attribute it to, and I still don't know. So my maximizer's really kind of upset about the fact that this has been attributed on the internet to at least 6 different people, but it's that good, so we're going to go with it. Good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is your best. The thing I love about that is it's that constant ability to say, we can do something even more amazing.
Yeah, it's a great statement. And a good one to remember. And remember, we do these to make other people better, right? And in what we're doing and change those lives. We will be back next week with positivity, an exciting week. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions, comments if you'd like to be a guest blogger, and we still are looking for those if you want to do that. Send us an email with your blog in it and to put guest blogger in the header in the subject line, and we'll route that over to Micah. And we can't take them all, but we'll take many of them. And send that to coaching@gallup.com. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this one. It's past, as well as all the links to our Facebook group, YouTube page. We mentioned the Facebook group earlier, and this is a good spot where it's at if you want to find it. YouTube page, RSS and iTunes feeds, iPhone and Android apps, as well as the Weekly Strengths Wisdom Program. If you go to the GWSW tab, you can get all the companion guides for everything we've gone through. It's all over at the Coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. Micah, we went over 800,000 views today.
Woo!
Yeah, blow through that big milestone for us. So 200,000 away from a million, and we're excited about that. Lots of good visibility. Lots of great things going on the Coaches blog, and it's not just recaps and videos and audios. We have great blog posts available for you out there. One today talking about building the entrepreneurial strengths of students, written very, very well, and if you haven't seen that, by the way, you can subscribe to that blog, and we'll send you a notification every day when a new post comes out, so you don't even have to think about it. How easy, Micah, how easy is that? How we've maximized that.
Look at that. It's not just good, it's great.
That's right. And so all available for you on our Coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. If you're thinking about becoming a certified coach, we've got a whole bunch of great courses that are available for you and that would lead to that certification. You can find those at courses.gallup.com. And if you've got your top 5, but you're interested in getting all 34, that's available as well in an upgrade to, you can do that at the Gallup Strength Center. We really recommend you get a coach at that point. All 34 is a great time to engage a coach, and we have a whole bunch of certified coaches out there for you on our directory to choose from if you'd like to do it. They're available for you at gallupstrengthcenter.com. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share. We'll look forward to the next Theme Thursday, where we're going to be doing positivity next week, and with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.